a great turnout. Lots of people in the room that really care about Arizona football. So it's great to have you all here. It's really cool. Today's such a special day. I think signing day is one of those amazing things that for all these young people, for their whole life they've been thinking about these opportunities and what this is going to be for them. And so we're really excited to talk about the players that have joined us today. And then we're also excited about kind of what they mean for our program going forward. I also know that there's been so much conversation about the season and how we did, and quite honestly, we all know it was not good enough. And that starts with me. And everything is in a constant process of evaluation. Every step of the way, a lot of that work has already begun. There's been a lot of speculation and conversation about staff changes. That stuff is going to be discussed tomorrow. I will be available for the media tomorrow. But today is about these players. And I want today to be a celebration of the young people that have chosen the University of Arizona and to be a part of our football program. And we're really excited about all of them. And I really think they all have a chance to really contribute in meaningful ways. Some of them this next year and then some of them down the road. Right? But I feel like we answered some real areas of need, and we're going to be very active in the transfer portal, which opens up on Monday. So there's all kinds of work to be done for our football program, and we are excited about where we're going, and we've made some great progress with the retention of our current roster. So let's go. What do y'all got for me? Come on.
All right, we'll start with Justin. Wait for the mic, please.
As far as the conversations with recruits this year, how much did you guys discuss NIL and rev share and all that?
So I think in the current climate of college football, that conversation is happening with every player that is either being retained or that you're recruiting. And it's 100%, 100% of the time that conversation is happening.
Okay, we'll go to David next, right here. Please wait for the microphone.
Brent, how would you describe how binding this signing is now under the new form of the new realm of college football that we're in? And are kids signing today? Are they obligated? Is it easy for them to get out of these signings if they decide they don't want to come here?
I don't know that I know the exact answer to that, and it's a good question. I think that once they sign their financial aid agreement, it is supposed to create a so-called recruiting ban. That means that other people are not supposed to actively recruit them once they are part of once they sign that financial aid agreement. How binding those things are, I think time will tell. We are obviously in this constant state of evolution in college football right now, and you see how, I think the NCAA, college football, coaches, recruits, everybody is there's a lot of new landscape, and everyone's kind of navigating it as we go through it.
Jason, raise your hand and get the mic here. Thank you.
Coach, how important was it for you to recruit both lines, especially the offensive line? It looks like you took multiple players in the class.
Yeah, absolutely. We felt like going through the season when we were going game in and game out to compete at a high level in the Big 12, we are going to have to, continue to put time and resources into the offensive and defensive front. I felt like a lot of the teams that we played were bigger than us, and physicality being such a hallmark of who we want to be and such an important thing in the game of football, that's something that we had to aggressively address with this recruiting class, and then we will continue to aggressively address in the transfer portal.
Jason Barr.
Hi. Two questions actually. One, can you talk about
y'all the double questions, man?
Yeah. Can you talk about Easy, the wide receiver, and also what's the expectation on how much these guys can contribute right away? Maybe some can and some a couple more years. Can you talk a little bit about your expectations for how soon these recruits can contribute?
Okay. First of all, we are really excited about Isaiah Mizell and Gio Richardson. One of the elements that we felt like we needed to add to our offense was some more speed. And I think that part of it is answered with both of them. Obviously, they can both fly. But I also like the toughness and the playmaking ability they bring with it, right? Sometimes when you're evaluating prospects, they have speed, but maybe they're not natural pass catchers, or they have speed, but they're not dynamic with the ball in their hands. Both of those guys can do both. You've seen, Gio playing defense also in this, state playoff run they're in. So both of those guys are really, really dynamic, and we expect both of them to impact our football team this season. And I'm excited because they'll be here for spring practice. So they'll have an advance on the learning. And Coach Wade is one of the best wide receiver coaches I've ever been around. And I think I'm uniquely qualified to say that because I've been a receiver coach in college football my whole life. And he does an incredible job with that. And so I think those kids are going to develop really quick in that. And I think adding them to the group that we have returning, we're going to love how that thing looks in the fall.
Ryan Peterson.
Excuse me, sorry, just catching my breath. When you were talking with the recruits as the season went on and toward the end and having those last conversations to ensure that they were still here, how did you address the way this season went and that's not what future ones will be and the importance of them being part of that?
That's a fair question. When you start recruiting a young person, right, it's you're starting a relationship. You're starting to build trust over time. And I really think that recruits choose people in the recruiting process. And so we continue to lean on the value of the University of Arizona education, on the quality of people here, on living in the city of Tucson, like things that are obvious and easy for them to see and feel when they were either here on their official visit or here unofficially, to see the crowds on game day and what the game day experience is like. All those things impact their decision-making process as they're trying to decide where they want to go to school. And so when we weren't having success in the season, there was still a lot of trust and a lot of history there. They chose to come play for the coaches on this staff because they believe those coaches are going to help them develop into high-level NFL quality players. And that didn't change just because we didn't have success.
Jenna Fink in the back, middle.
What was your focus and goals for this signing class, and do you think that you addressed all the needs that you had?
I'll answer the last part first. We continue to have needs for our football team that we are going to aggressively fill and address over the next month, with the opening of the transfer portal on Monday. And then, what was the first question? Sorry.
Just what was your overall focus and goal with this signing class?
So we love multi-sport athletes. I think you're seeing more and more specialization these days. A lot of these kids play more than one sport. You see a lot of football and basketball, football and track, football and baseball. We think that helps them develop their overall athleticism. It also gives us an opportunity as coaches and evaluators to see them compete in a sport other than football. Sometimes you notice maybe a little bit more athleticism on a basketball court. Like, oh, I didn't know he could do that. One of the Big Josh today showed me a video of one of our offensive line commits throwing down a reverse two-hand dunk. I was like, okay, let's go. So we're always trying to find those things. We're also looking for players that come from high quality high school programs so that they're used to high level expectations of performance and dedication and commitment. And I think we answered a lot of that with this group.
In terms of recruiting, obviously the Big 12 state of Texas is an area you guys want to get into. How successful do you think you guys did that for this recruiting class? And what was the feedback when you guys were in Texas?
It's interesting that the calendar has changed so much. So the only chance I was able to get down to Texas was working a camp in the summertime. With the new NCAA, with the new schedule the NCAA put out, the month of December is now a quiet and a dead period where they used to have 2.5 weeks of or 2 full weeks of really pounding the pavement, aggressively recruiting and getting out. And that's when you were in the family's living room and you were at their house and talking with their parents and all that stuff. Like all of that has been kind of eliminated with the new calendar, so it makes it really, really different. The good news is we have a lot of people on our staff with deep ties in Texas and also do a great job of recruiting those kids once they got here. And so the reception so far has been positive. And I think once those players come here and have an incredible experience being a part of our football program and going to school at the University of Arizona, we're going to be able to get more. They're going to go home and tell those players about their experience here and the value of playing for this program and the value of being a part of this team. And I think that's going to help us bring more high quality players from the state here.
David Kelly.
Coach, you mentioned Gio and Easy are probably coming mid-year. How important is that now for guys to be here in January, and how early do you have to start having those conversations with kids? I mean, is that almost like when you start recruiting, it's like, look, if you want to come here, we'd like you to come in January, or are kids already in the mindset that they want to be here in January?
Yeah, you just answered your question. Yeah, a lot of the players have already done the work necessary to put themselves in a position to matriculate mid-year their senior year. And I think it's a catch-22. I think there's benefit to that because they they basically have a full 8 months with Coach Carroll and our strength and conditioning staff and their spring practice. Like they are more physically ready to play as freshmen. They're also, acclimated academically, which I think there's also like extreme value in that, because for a lot of the young people that show up, in June or July, and then all of a sudden the season hits and school starts, they're really drinking out of a fire hose that first season. And I think one part of their life can get turned upside down. Sometimes it's academics, sometimes it's football. So having that time here, being able to enroll in the mid-year, I do think it is really beneficial. I'm also a little bit old school. I think there's benefit to going to your senior prom. I think there's benefit to second semester senior year, right? I mean, everybody smiled in the room right there. Everybody just remembered the second semester of their senior year of high school and how magical that time in your life was. So I can see both benefits to both things. I will say though, of the young people that are going to join us at the mid-year in this recruiting class, we are all very excited about them coming.
Michael, wait for the microphone.
I have 2 questions, per usual. Of the 20 players who've been announced so far, do you know how many are coming in mid-year?
What is that number, Geiska? 5.
5?
Yep.
Okay. And then secondarily, what can you tell us about Zach Siulepa and how you found him and how he came to become a Wildcat?
So you notice the size and the length of this young man, right? And I think that's part of it as we looked at this class and with the defensive line, just kind of adding people to that we think can impact the team right now. And Zach is one of those guys. And that was started from our recruiting staff and also from a relationship from Coach Carter. And there's so much of that, the relationship thing with high school and junior college coaches, right? If we do right by a player, I've been doing this for, 28 years, right? Like Coach Akina's been doing it for a little bit longer, right? But like people are gonna trust sending players to Dwayne Akina, or trust sending players to Alonzo Carter, or trust sending them to me, provided I did a good job with the ones they sent before. And so that's how Zach worked out, because there's been some trust built there. And I think that's got to be a hallmark an absolute hallmark of our recruiting process also, because we are starting to recruit in some new areas. But the good news is we have people on staff that have been in those places before and have a good track record in those places before. And I think that will lead to more quality players coming to the U of A.
Jason Shear.
2 questions also.
Let's go.
Is there an estimate of how many new scholarship players you expect to bring in, whether it's high school guys or portal or?
I would say there's a little bit not, because the retention piece is still ongoing and the portal has not officially opened here or opened in college football. And so some of that will become a little bit more clear over the next month. And then you'll also have the post-spring practice portal, right? So, I think this is the nature of college football now. And everybody is working their tails off to find the best way forward with all the new rules and the new adjustments. But some of it you're learning on the fly, because none of it is cookie cutter, right? You might have high level retention, you might have low level retention, but you still have to fill out those spots. And so those are things that people have to figure out as they move through it. And it's different to every program.
And that kind of leads to my next question, not just you, but coaches throughout the country. How do you balance pressure to win now versus wanting to develop high school players and mix that with the portal? Like, how do you address the balance between the two?
I think that's hard. And I think we all know that we are in a result-oriented business, and that's just the nature of what we've chosen to do with our lives. But there's also a part that building consistent winning football programs, there is a time element, there's a culture element, and there's a talent element, right? And you have to invest heavily into all 3 of those things to get the results you want on the field.
Justin.
As far as the in-state guys go, what do you like about the handful of guys that you brought in?
Well, that's always going to be such an important thing for us, recruiting the state of Arizona. And having recruited down here over the years, some of my previous stops, every time, the more time I spend down here, the more I'm impressed with the quality of high school football in this state. There's extremely well-coached teams, so there's high caliber competition, and then there's high level talent. And so we're excited about these kids that are coming to join us, and I think as we continue to build our program here, as we continue to find ways to get better and improve and have success at the University of Arizona, and build relationships with these high school coaches, they're going to be excited about sending their players here because they know they're going to have a good experience. Their players are going to have a good experience playing for us here at the U of A.
Any more questions for Coach? Justin?
Then you have one running back, Wesley Arborough. What's his story and what can you tell us about the player that he is?
You should ask Coach Carter about him. But this is an awesome young man. When you guys meet him, you guys are going to love the energy of these players when you meet them, just like how excited they are about coming to Arizona, how excited they are about playing college football. But Wesley is a guy that tripped us in the spring. He runs with power. He's got speed, and he ran all over everybody this fall. I think he rushed for 1,700 yards. He was the player of the year in their district, and we feel like we're adding a guy that can be a real game changer for us.
And are you able to comment on the quarterbacks?
I can comment on Luke.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we're excited, to, again, the emphasis on recruiting the state of Arizona to get the highest rated quarterback in this class in state is a big thing for us. And he's an athletic kid. He's a big time basketball player. He's an early enrollee, which we're excited about. And so for us to be able to get that done, he came here and worked out for us in the spring at camp, did a great job. And we've been building that relationship over the last, 6-7 months. And so we're excited about him coming. He's been down to a bunch of games this week. He comes from a great family. And the only thing that's going to be hard for him enrolling early is he's going to miss the basketball season. And I think he's like 4 points away from scoring 2,000 points or something. Or he's a really good basketball player. So we got a bunch of hoopers coming in, man. I think the intramurals better watch out.
Michael?
2 questions, because that's what we do. The first one, what do you make of this schedule that college football has created, where the signing day is early December, just a few days after the season ends, and the portal opens. Meanwhile, many teams' seasons are still going.
Right. I think everybody is doing the best they can trying to figure out how to make it all work with the moving pieces. For years they've been talking about, forever it was just the signing day was the first Wednesday in February, and that's what we all lived off of, right? But it was, for many people in many institutions, I think that was a little bit of a waste of time and resources, because if I had a player committed, I was going to see him 3 weeks in December and then another 3 weeks in January to make sure that he was still committed. You know what I mean? So that somebody couldn't swoop in there. And so it was really, really time intensive, even though the kid's like, Coach, I'm good, And if you had the earlier signing date like we do now, that would have been done, and you could have moved on to whatever you're trying to get done next with your program. The early signing date, moving it from the 15th or mid-December to the 4th, I think is a good thing. There's been conversation of moving it into the spring or the summer or before the season. And I've heard mixed reviews. I think, you ask 1,000 people their opinion, you'll get 1,000 different opinions on it, which is probably some of the challenge of trying to get the best way forward with what we're doing. There's been so much conversations from head coaches, administrators, presidents, the NCAA, trying to find the best schedule to make it just the most efficient and effective schedule for the game of college football. And a lot of it is, I think, you learn or trial and error, right? You're like, hey, that didn't work. That was good. That wasn't good. And so everybody's trying to find the best way forward. And there's a lot of smart people working really, really hard to get that done so that it is good for everybody, from the recruits all the way to the everybody at the university.
Sure. The other question is, how much, when you're putting your recruiting board together, are you looking at traits such as length, height, speed, etc.?
That's a huge part of it for us. There's a baseline for us that we want to make sure that we identify, like high school football players. We are looking for smart, tough, love football. Smart, tough, love football. And so that needs to come with the 6'7", 350-pound frame of Zach, right? Like, he needs to love it, right? Because if he doesn't love it, he's not going to love practicing every day, and he's not going to love the weight room. And so just like identifying those kind of intangibles, smart, tough, love football, is really part of our evaluation process. And with the amount of time we spend talking to coaches, talking to the kids, talking to their teammates, talking to other coaches in the area, right? And then spending time with them in the evaluation process, whether they're coming on campus for a camp. Like lots of time when we have a player to camp, we're trying to find out, does he love it? Is he taking every rep? Is he competing? Right, that kind of thing. But the length, the speed, all that stuff, we're looking for high-level players, and they have to have those things for us to be a high-level program in the Big 12.
Brian Peterson.
Are you able to say what number you have as far as the amount of revenue share available for your team this year?
I'm not, but I'll tell you this, our athletics director has been awesome in that space. She's super aggressive, and there's so many people that have helped us get to this signing date today. You know, Rachel Blunt, Phil Mabin, there's such a different signing day, right? Because all of a sudden you didn't just have your traditional NLI, all right, national letter of intent, that got eliminated, right? You actually had your financial aid agreement, and then you had some version of the revenue conversation. So there's multiple contracts for everybody to figure out. And when you're dealing with players with different representation, that representation might have different issues with how contracts are written or how it reads, or right, all those things. So like the people were incredible, and Desiree has been awesome giving us, we're gonna have the support we need to build the kind of championship program we wanna build.
David Kelly.
Coach, a lot of us watched Deshaun Hinton on the youth fields here in Tucson. I can remember one day he took a kickback for a touchdown and it was called for a penalty, lined up and did it again, back to back. What do you see in that young man?
It's really neat because I was a graduate assistant when his dad was playing here, which just gives you all a little bit of an idea how old I am. But it's also cool because Coach Aquina coached his dad. And so obviously having some history with the family. The thing I love about him is he's explosive on both sides of the ball, and he plays with an edge and a toughness that I think we're going to like when he lines up for us here.
Our last question will go to Justin.
Come on, man. I'll answer more questions. I'm good, Jeff. Let it rip. Signing day. It's a great day for everybody.
Well, and with that being said, with Hinton, I think Sway Griffin was also, his dad played for Aquina. How much did those relationships with parents help out with those guys?
Well, I think that speaks to the trust, right? The trust that those parents had with Coach Aquina. It's obviously well documented that Dwayne Aquina is one of the best, if not the best, secondary coach in the country. His track record speaks for itself. Like 6 Thorpe Award winners, right? Like so many NFL players. I've never even, like 6 Thorpe Award winners? I've never even heard of that. Like I'm still getting mileage off of coaching 1 Biletnikoff winner, and that was 12 years ago. Right, but like what Dwayne has done in this game, coaching that position, it's no surprise that those players' parents want their sons to play for Dwayne, which is, I think, is a really cool thing, and that is trust. And those players, you know, those parents, their experience with Coach Aquina was exceptional, so exceptional that they are trusting the development of their most important person in the world to them, their son, to play for Dwayne, and that is awesome.
Jason, Shear.
You have a unique relationship with Kellen Ford. What can you tell us about him as a person and as a player?
I'm glad you asked. This is such a cool story. So Kellen Ford's, he's a tight end from Monte Vista High School in California. And so his mother was best friends with my wife in high school, and his father also went to high school with my wife. So his mom, Krista and Evan, Krista was a soccer player at Washington. Evan was a football player at Washington State. And growing up with those families, like, you know, Krista was in our wedding. And so just knowing them so well, we lived across the street when I was an assistant at San Jose State. And I was gone so much coaching football, and Krista actually works for Nike. She was gone so much that everybody thought that Kellen's dad and my wife were husband and wife. She's gonna love me telling that story, by the way. I'm hitting on all cylinders, people, let's go. All right, but so our families literally grew up together, and Kellen was always a special athlete, and he just kind of played everything, and he was naturally good at it. I will say the day he was born, my wife Courtney and I went to the hospital, and I brought him an offer letter. At the time I was an assistant at San Jose State. I brought him an offer letter the day he was born, I handed his parents an offer letter and said, when he's ready, I want him. And so we've had a couple special moments with them this morning with our staff and the celebration of it. I also think Coach Atkins is a huge part of his recruitment. Just Matt's history of developing the tight end position, and because Kellen has had so much exposure to Matt because of my relationship with Kellen, I think that's really been helpful in terms of him choosing to play here. Because I think without that relationship with Coach Atkins, we would have had trouble, with UCLA and Washington on that one. Because Kellen's sister plays volleyball at UCLA, and his mom went to Washington, played soccer there. So we're really excited about Kellen Ford. I'm glad I sent him brought that letter to the hospital the day he was born, and it's going to pay off big time for the Arizona Wildcats.
Any more questions? Okay. That's our time.
All right, bear down.